Hello, Michelle Stewart here with My Creations with Michelle. I've been asked to show how to make my pinecone ornaments. And pictured here you'll see paper, sequin pins, and a styrofoam egg. Now, you also need a decorative pin as well as some ribbon. And the pin you actually have some choices with. There's different colors out there. I'm just using a standard dressmaking pin for my topper. It's just got a white head, but there are so many options out there for you. The ribbon I'm using is just regular white ribbon, and it has about 6 yards, I think, on a spool, and it has a little bit of stitching, decorative outing edge there. So this I actually just purchased at my local Walmart store. I think it was like $1 a roll, so very affordable option. So I just showed you my thumb, and that is mainly because the pins actually push into your thumb and it can become quite tender, so I actually double up a band-aid and it helps with the pressure point. Now the eggs I get are from Atlantic Fabrics. It's my local craft and fabric store. They measure 2.3 inches by 1.6 inch or 6 centimeters by 4.2 centimeters. Come in 8 in a package, and if you can't find them, ask at your local fabric or craft store and see if it's something that they can order in for you. There are a couple of other size options, but this one I find really works the best for this particular project. So yes. Okay, so to start off, you're going to need some paper crafting pattern scrapbook paper, something that's got a decent thickness to it. You're going to cut them into 1-inch squares, and you need about 72 squares to start off. It's about approximately half a sheet of paper, so you should be able to get 2 ornaments for every sheet. Once you have all your paper cut into your 1-inch squares, you can actually see that I've already got all mine prepped, and they're actually all folded. And what I've done is I will cut all my paper and put it into a plastic bag until I'm ready to do all my folds. So here I folded the paper down to create a point, and that point is where we're going to start off by pinning it onto the egg. You are going to want to make sure it's a nice crisp and pointy edge. Each row you're going to need 4 pieces, and the sequin pins you can get in the color gold or silver. It really doesn't matter. I'm able to purchase those actually in a large bulk box. It doesn't tell me how many is exactly in it, but I think it goes by weight, but I don't actually have an empty box here to show you. You can also ask your craft or fabric retailer about sequined pins. So starting off, you want to try to find the centermost point of your egg to get the pin. And just, I'm a little off screen here just so that I can find that center point and get an idea of where I need to do my first placement. You can poke your pins in right up where your crease, your folds are made for your first couple of rows. You can then move it further down along the sides of the paper as you go along. So I'm just pinning my second piece on here, and I've noticed that I'm not quite in the center, so I'm actually going to end up moving the first piece so that it lines up much better. Okay, so now that I've got that second piece lined up much better to create the center point, I'm going to continue pinning on the remaining pieces to create that first row. The pins, you'll find every couple might have a missing point or a flat. It's really hard to push those through, so I tend to just push those off to the side. You can use them by taking one that has a point and poking a hole and then using them, and I do tend to use that once I've collected quite a bit of them. Just don't want to waste any of those sequin pins. So here I'm just finishing up the pinning of that first row. Okay, so this is the last piece of that second row going on, and then we're going to start off with the third row, and basically when it comes to the next row and alternating, you want to find the middle piece, or the middle of two of the pieces, two of the points, and you're going to well, you have some flexibility. You can line it up so that it's exactly level with the two previous points from the second row, or you can drop it just a little bit. And I think here I've dropped it just about, you know, a pin width. So you're going to stagger it, and you're still going to go ahead and pin on all four sides in between each of those points from the second row. Okay, so I'm just about finishing up here the third row, and you're going to get a chance to see how that row came together compared to the first two previous rows. Okay. So my next row, my fourth row, is being lined up with the previous first and second row. And like I mentioned before, you're just going to alternate back and forth from these two different rows. So 1, 2, and 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 are all going to be the same. 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13 will all be the same. So 1, 2, 4, those are the ones that are like your initial starting. So 1 and 2, and then 4, 3, 5, and so on. All the odd ones are the in between the first two rows. And I do really apologize for going off screen, but I'm used to working in my lap, pinning, so working underneath the camera was really a challenge. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to kind of just pause and get the rest of this put together closer to the bottom of the egg, or actually that would become the top of the egg because the topper will go there. So we're going to just pause this here, and I'm going to jump ahead. Okay, so we are back, and as you can see, I've got all but the last 2 or 3 rows done. And what I really like to do with the last couple rows is I might add an extra pin in just to help secure it in place. And as you can see, I've got the paper kind of lifted, and I'm actually going to put a pin in underneath, holding the flap down, and it's just going to give it a little bit of extra security so that those pieces don't want to lift off and pull the pins out. So that is what I do when I get to my last 2 to 3 rows. Sometimes, depending on the thickness of the paper that you're using, you might need to do that sooner than the last couple of rows, and you'll really get a feel for the different types of paper that are out there. Now, I have used other brands besides Close to My Heart, but I do prefer to use the Close to My Heart paper. It has a really good flexibility to it, holds the lines really nice, and what's the word I'm looking for? The creases, that's it. Holds the creases very well for where I've folded to create my points. You can see that I'm still adding extra pins in behind, and you don't have to worry about a crease being created by folding that down, because you're actually not, you're just kind of pulling it away so you can get in behind. So here I'm just, continuing with those last couple of rows, and I still have quite a bit of the styrofoam showing, so I think I'll probably still add another row here for sure. Okay, so now I am starting to pin that last row, and this is where we're going to actually take the top pieces of the paper. You can see here that I'm showing that I've tucked them in, and that's really just so that I can create that smooth edge. We don't want the paper underneath trying to lift off the paper above. So, and using a couple extra pins here might also help. Don't be scared to put an X instead of just one underneath the flap. Put 2 underneath. I didn't get that one pin down very well, and it poked through the paper. So sometimes it's great that you don't use all 72 pieces of squares, which in this case I'm not going to end up using. So I actually have a couple of extra spare squares to use, and I'll file those away in case they're the next ornament I might pin together. Might use all 72, and I might still have quite a bit of styrofoam showing, so I might need some extra squares. So I keep those until that whole pattern is used up and I don't have any more of that pattern to use to make any more pine cones. So yeah, so we're just going to get that finished up, and then we'll put the topper on. So yeah, so if you figure out, I think I use about 110 on average pins per ornament. Sometimes it might be a little less, sometimes it might be a little more, depending on how my paper lays. But I do prefer using the Close to My Heart pattern paper for the ornaments, just because I do get a much better lay. If you use paper that's a little bit thicker, you also need to put a little bit more force with pushing in the sequin pins, and you're going to end up with a very sore thumb, even with the band-aids on. I speak from experience. Now you can use some thinner papers. You have a chance of them tearing. I have used some Stampin' Up paper on an ornament just because I had a customer request, and I had a couple pieces that tore, and I had to be very creative with how I continued making the pine cone. So now what we're going to put the topper on, and I've got my decorative pin and my ribbon, and what I'll do is I'll actually pull out quite a length of ribbon already, and I'm going to just use my fingers to create my topper. So I'll tuck the end in between my ring finger and my middle finger, and you want to actually squeeze that quite tight because the ribbon will pull out through. And I think in this case I'm going to wrap it around 6 times 5 will still make a really nice topper. If you start adding too much, it's going to become bulky and overlaid. So 5 or 6 times around is a good number. In this case, I did 6 times around. And the final time when I come up to the top of my 6 count, so my 6 is at the top of my pointer finger, I guess, index, pointer. I guess there's different names depending on where you're from. Anyways, so once I get up there, I'm going to actually loop it back around down towards my pinky finger, and that's going to be the part that's actually going to be the loop to hang it on your tree. Okay, you can see there where it is. And now I'm going to gently slide it off my fingers and set it up. Okay, so now I'm just sliding this off my fingers and getting the loop set up. You can see here that I'm just sort of lining it up with the tab piece of the end piece of the ribbon from both sides so that they kind of overlap, so the pin's actually going to hold them in place. And you want to try to get it in the center and catch both ends. Oh. Okay, let's try this again. I missed the first time. Okay, so I've got it through this time, and now I'm going to try to find the middle of the loop at that end. And I think I did it pretty bang on. You want the same amount on either side, because these are going to create all your loops on the top of your ornament. So you want to find approximately as close to the center of the top of your now pine cone. And you don't want to push it all the way down because you want to have that maneuverability so you can pull out each of the loops. So this is where having nails comes in handy, because you'll be able to grab a hold of each piece and pull it out. And there is 6 on each side, so you want to make sure that you're getting all 6. So you might actually have 2 that kind of stick together, so make sure you get them all, and you're just going to separate them. And as you start working one side, the other side might start coming out on its own, but you still want to go over and make sure that you still have all of them separated. You don't want to have a double up. Okay, so let's just check on this side out. This one's got a double, so we're going to separate that. And I think that was it. Okay, so that's what the topper, pretty easy to do. And now you're just going to push your pin down, secure it. Since I make these for customers and use them as gifts, and I don't want the topper coming off when I hang it on the tree, I've been actually taking some of the liquid glass, and I will put underneath the ribbon and right around the pin. Let the pin get a hold of the liquid glass really good, and it will stay on. You shouldn't have to worry. And as you can see, you don't see any sign of any of the gold color pins. You don't see them. The topper covers them. And so there is your finished pine cone. And don't be scared to play with different patterns. The green looks really nice, the back side of this pattern. So be creative, try different patterns. Don't be scared of, taking chances. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I promise that with each one I will improve. Until next time, this is Michelle, signing off.